Okay, people. So today I am joined by director, writer, executive producer Stephen Sawchuk and executive producer Elysia Rotaru.
Oh,
Did I get that right?
you got that was pretty good on both of us. Nice
Okay.
one.
Okay. Nice. I usually am terrible at these things. So I'll just take that as a win.
That's awesome.
Uh, so, guys, you're just about to have your new show. Hell is a teenage girl play at Fantasia. Right. So, how does that feel? Right, because Fantasia is a big ass film festival. This is, you know what I mean? No
I'm nervous.
silly shit here.
Yeah, I think we're both just like stoked because it's like, we had made our first like little short film 7 or 8 years ago or something like
Yeah.
that. And had wanted to do like a follow up and do it a little bigger and a little better. And Fantasia was always one of like the top festivals that we really wanted to get into or at least attend at some point. And so to be able to do both is just like, it's great. We're really excited.
Yeah. Bags are packed. We
Bags are
travel
packed.
tomorrow. We travel tomorrow.
Oh, tremendous. I mean, how did the idea of this one come together? Because I think when you're watching it, it's clear that you know this genre, that you have a love for this genre. So yeah, how did this film, this idea spawn?
Well, Stephen,
Yeah.
would you like to begin? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's Elysia and I, we met like a long time ago, like 15 or almost 16 years ago, I think. And Elysia, you can obviously speak to this a bit more, but like I grew up watching horror movies since we were like 7 or 8, like in our,
Oh, yeah.
in our basement
Same.
at home.
Yeah.
And yeah, and one of the first ones that like really kind of like stuck with me was obviously the original Scream movie. And so it was almost like, Elysia and I were actually in Atlanta for our first short film that we were there for the festival at Atlanta Horror Shorts. And after the festival was kind of over, we decided we're like, let's go out for a drink. And neither of us had really been to Atlanta before.
Yeah.
And we wound up in this like really strange nightclub that was like in
Like in the outskirts of town. Like weird.
It might not, now that I think about it, it might not have even been a nightclub. I don't even know where we were. But
it almost felt like a tailgate party and like some weird warehouse. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. And we were just like, we had a beer and we're like, well, I guess we should finish our beer here before we leave. And then we were just like standing there and just like spitballing ideas and stuff, and then kind of riffed off of, the daughter of a serial killer, and then kind of creating the world from there, and then tapping into and kind of acknowledging those, the rules of horror, which existed for a long time, but then Scream, of course, really kind of acknowledged and hit the nail on the head. And we just kind of had fun from there. And we went through a lot of different drafts and rewrites. And this started as more of a kind of a feature length concept. And we've been continuing developing that. And we're in development on it right now, actually, the feature length version. But what we really wanted to do first, and Kevin, as I'm sure you know, with like a lot of the filmmakers that you speak with, is what's really important, especially for anyone, I think, kind of like emerging in the space and especially in the genre, is to just have something to kind of show, hey, like this is what we can do for a couple grand that, we self-financed in a 2.5 day shoot. And this is kind of like a little teaser for the bigger story that we want to tell in the feature. So I guess it's a really long-winded way of kind of saying we were in Atlanta, maybe in
had a drink or two. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. The neon lights inspired us. It was
yeah. At least he was always like a little weird. You were a little weirdo too growing up. Like, I mean, your company.
Yeah.
Psycho.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I think my first horror movie or slasher was Chucky. And I was like 5. Why am I watching that? I don't know.
Oh man. I mean, I definitely believe, what you said, right? It's giving people that proof of concept, because I think the real big thing with that is the fact that if you want a studio, right? If you want someone to invest in you, why should they? Right? And if you haven't invested in yourself, why should someone invest in you even more so? Right?
Yeah.
So creating something like this is a great testament, not just to the idea, but actually to you guys, right? To say that you're committed to something, right? You're willing to do what it takes to make this thing happen. So I think that's definitely a big one with doing something like this. And I think it's definitely a route more people should look into. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's tough. It's not
Mm.
easy. I mean, like, I don't have daddy money funding this. Um, where's my daddy? Anyone? But yeah, it's definitely, like you said, it's definitely like a fun way to get into it and go about it. I think you just have to be able to cut your teeth in a right way and know that it's going to be fucking hard. And if you have a great partner and a great team around you, that's what makes it fun and a result that intrigues people. Like, you watched it,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
that's why we're here. But
Yeah.
yeah, so no, it's a great thing. But it's
Yeah. No,
yeah.
it was I thought it was a lot of fun, right?
Great.
I
Great.
thought it was a lot of fun, and it's 15 minutes, but you're able to round out these characters,
Yeah.
right? And give people a story that you get invested in. And there's been, 2-hour films where I felt, oh, these characters are so fucking paper thin. What
Yeah.
are we doing here? You know what I mean? Where's the plot? Where's the story? You know what I mean? So the fact that you can create something like this in 15 minutes, right? That's huge.
Yeah.
And I think the studios, the investors can look at that and definitely see that potential.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
well,
Thanks.
yeah, I'm glad that you kind of, felt that way after watching it. Because you're totally right. It's like, especially rewatching some, some of the slashers from like the early 2000s and stuff like that after like, Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer were such big hits. And it's easy to just have 90 minutes full of body count, but that doesn't really matter when you don't really care about the characters or there's kind of, nothing relatable about them or no backstories. So, I think it was definitely a struggle doing it in 15 minutes too. And I've had a lot of fun just like tweaking and rewriting the feature outline as we're, preparing to head to Fantasia and the Frontiers Market right after. So we hope the feature can really just expand on that world and really round out the characters even more. But it's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
When you're breaking this down, right? When you're looking at it and going, okay, before we do the feature, let's do this proof of concepts. Right. Firstly, 15 minutes, right? Where do you decide on the time? And then where do you go? Okay, these are the things that are most important to show first. Everything else we can save that, but this stuff, we need this stuff. So how did you balance all of that? How did you settle on the time? You know what I mean? What was that process?
Well, I think Elysia and I were both, obviously, we were both there for all the shoot days, and Elysia was really involved with the edit too. And I think when it was kind of the matter of taking the feature concept and then paring it back, we sort of had two options where we could have shot like, almost scenes from the feature, which a lot of people do and are very successful, and then kind of financing and, attraction for their feature. But what we really wanted to do, because we had such a great time when we were in the festival circuit in 2017 and 2018, was to make a story that had a beginning, middle, and an end and was clear and could stand on its own. and then we could just expand on that to kind of like create a bit of curiosity, but also get people invested in the characters. So that was important to us. And I know that when I was writing it, I didn't get too hung up on the runtime, but I knew I needed it to be like max like 20 minutes. Otherwise it's very, as you know, very hard to get programmed. I would have loved to do it in 10, but
we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. Yeah.
So 15 felt like a bit of a sweet spot. And
15 was like a golden number for some weird reason that just kept happening, especially in the editing room. And when we looked at programmers' time codes of like, this must live within this, we're like, okay, great. But that, I think that came more towards the end when we were getting ready to package it and like complete it. But Stephen's like really fantastic at writing. Like I can't, like Stephen and I met, I was in his project at school and I was like, this guy's gonna fucking crush it. He does this really great thing with dialogue where it doesn't bog you down and it gives you everything you need. And as an actor first and now being on the other side of the camera and working beside him, I think it's beautiful watching it come off the page when people carry it that way. And so our shoot days, I think, went smoothly and were so well done because the story was literally there. And we didn't need to tweak dialogue. We didn't need to do anything crazy because he already did that all. Like Stephen, like he's so detailed and cares so much about what he just said earlier of like giving these characters lives within such a short, concentrated amount of time so that it can affect you, the viewer, so that you feel complete. And then we can take it further. But yeah, I think that's always the fun part. Because God, I can't wait to read the feature when you get it ready, Stephen. How many revisions?
No. Yeah, like that is definitely a skill, right? With dialogue, because man, so many times you watch things and you know some characters are fleshed out, others it comes off real wooden, or you know, people talk in that Dawson's Creek way where it's just like normal people do not talk like that. Like everyone you meet does not talk exactly the same. Like what is happening? You know what I mean? So how do you channel your inner 16-year-old girl, Stephen? Right? Like how do you find those voices?
That was when we were like doing I think it was when we were like doing auditions, or maybe like right after we cast Skylar or something like that, and then some other people had read the script. People commented, they're like, wow, you're really good at writing a teenage girl's dialogue. And I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment or if I should be weirded out by that, but I don't know. It's just fun. But then like, what's so great is like, again, me and Elysia play off each other really well, I think, in the creative process. And like Alicia's background is in front of the camera as an actress. And so a lot of the time I can, you know, write something too and spitball it off of her. And she has really good suggestions and kind of like alternates. And it's just a really kind of fun process. But I'm one of those weirdos who really likes structure. I feel like you can learn, and then dialogue is just kind of one of those things that just like instinctually kind of comes to you in this weird way where you try to just put yourself in a 16-year-old girl's head and or you know in like a 40-year-old mom's head and that sort of thing, and just try to maintain their character throughout. But yeah.
But I think that's one of the things though, right? So you've got oh gosh, what's the name again?
Skylar?
No, Riley. Is it
Fally?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just fixing my light.
Yes, yeah. Her friend, right? Yeah, yes, Fally, like Parker's friend, Riley. Very different to Parker. You know what I mean? Like because you know, as I said, a lot of the times people write characters and they're very similar, but everyone's got a distinct voice. You know, like the dialogue for the mum is great. I mean, there's that scene and the mum's just like, I'll tell you, back in the day, it was a bit of a dry. No one wants to hear your mum tell you she had a dry patch. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to hear any of that, but it just works. It was fun. You know what I mean? Like everyone had these great voices, you know, and so that skill, that finding just the right because it's funny, but it's not forced. And a lot of times, with these things get very forced.
Well, you know what's really cool about that, Kevin, that I love that you said that. Like I said earlier, Stephen has this flow. And I think with our dynamic, like when I read his stuff, I automatically think of like who I know and who fits that role as an actor. Like I go there because I can see it and I can feel it and I can hear it. But like it's nice hearing someone like yourself, like you haven't worked with us, but like you picked up on it. And I think that's really cool. Like you tapped in. But like he's good at that. That's why he's amazing.
But I just think it's like one of those things too, where like Kevin, you're totally right, and it's easy to fall into that trap sometimes too, where sometimes you're writing and you're like, I'll just give that line to that person because I just need to push the plot forward, and it's like, well, then you got to think about who would be the one to actually say that, why are they going to say it, and how would they say it, and to kind of maintain that consistency. So that's probably why we had, I went through like 87 drafts of the short, but it's just kind of fine tuning it. And then again, it's really great playing off of Elysia too, where it's just like, sometimes there would be a draft and it'd be like, well, why is he saying it and not her, or something like that.
No, I think with something like this, right? And you touched on it earlier, because you had Scream, you had I Know What You Did Last Summer, and then we got all the clones, right? And then because those films are successful, you obviously turn them into franchises, and you're just rolling, and things become, just what are we doing, right? The plots don't make any sense, and obviously we've got slashers running around, people coming back from, like, yes, there's fun with it, right? There's this larger than life aspect, but the story should at least be plausible in a way, right? You should watch and be like, yeah, from what we've seen of this character, I believe they would do this thing, right? And that's what we don't always get. So when you're putting something together, a fresh entry to this, how important is it for you to avoid a lot of these trappings, right? Or are you trying to go, okay, I want to play up these things? You know what I mean? Like, what is the vision? What's the approach?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. One writer who, with the exception of, I have never watched Dawson's Creek. I'm maybe the one person, but somebody who I think has always done a really good job, especially in the genre. And even though we're on Scream 7 next year, Kevin Williamson has always done a really good job of making you care about the characters. Even like Drew Barrymore's in the opening of Scream for 10 minutes, not even maybe, and you still empathize with her and you feel bad for her and you feel like you're in there. Or like, Tatum going through the cat door in the garage, and then, she screams mom right before she dies. And it's like those little details and those little things where he makes it not just about racking up a body count, and it's about having these little nuances with the characters that always kind of resonated with me. But to be fair, there's a lot of movies and a lot of like sometimes scenes and where you just need the fun and games, and you just need you need a body count, you need a fun kill, a fun throwaway. But I guess it's walking that dance, and like that's the thing. I don't know if there's necessarily like a right way or a wrong way, because there's a lot of great movies too that are just fun hack and slash kind of slashers. And so that's what's so cool about the genre, is you can kind of get away with a lot. There's no rules. Well, there's rules in our short, but E, what do you? E.
No, I agree. And then I also just feel like it just depends on the pacing and like the energy that you're wanting to bring to that programming too. You know what I mean? Like if we're going to do something like The Strangers versus like this type of slasher kill, or like we talked about Tragedy Girls before, like, I think it's just the tone of what you want to bring forward. And you can care. I mean, it's also I mean, like, kids killing is like a little bit, like kids getting slashed is like a little sensitive subject matter. But, like, can we make it fun and entertaining, but also not so like weirdly gratuitous? I don't know. But do we want to? I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's a good question. I think it just depends on the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with things like this, and just with all films, like I watch them. Sometimes things work for me, sometimes they don't, right?
Mhm.
But that's fine. You know what I mean? Because not everything has to work for you, because there is an audience for that thing,
Mhm.
right?
100%.
There's how many final destinations, screams, we've done Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, we've got all of these franchises, Fast and the Furious. Like, it goes on and on and on. And
Yeah.
some of those things work for you, some don't, right? But I think so when you're creating stuff, I guess it's like, what is your kind of sensibilities, right? And when you think about what works for you, do you sometimes wonder, but does this work for everyone? Like, should I try and cater to the masses, or do the things that I enjoy?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a big ass studio question.
Yeah,
I know that's a heavy one. Go for it, Stephen. I don't know.
I mean, like, my instinct is always, be mindful of, I guess, who your audience is, but also at the same time, like, there's a reason there's so many different, writers and directors and producers and filmmakers. It's because everyone has a different point of view and wants to present something differently. Like, you can hand, 10 directors the same script and they're all going to shoot something completely different. And I think it's important to not kind of lose your POV and to follow your gut. And if something that you feel strongly about might not resonate with audiences, but you feel it's important, you go for it. And then sometimes there's that like humbling moment where you write a joke or something like that, or like, a twist in a script or something, and it just lands flat when people are reading it, and you're like, okay, my instinct was way off, or I didn't land it correctly. So I think I don't know, for me, I feel it's like following your gut and having a point of view, but then also being receptive to, feedback in the process and collaborating with, the actors that you're working with and the stunts people and the producers. And because that's at the end of the day, like, I felt like Elysia, like throughout this whole process too, it felt like a very collaborative one, especially with the actors and the actresses.
Yeah.
Now, with that, right, with that feedback from people, how much of it do you, well, I should probably say, when do you know to take it on and when to leave it? Because there's so many times, when you think about Donnie Darko, when Donnie Darko dropped, people did not like that film, right? It wasn't a roaring success, but over time, then suddenly everyone does a reverse and you're like, oh, I loved it. I always thought it was a great fit. You know what I mean? So people can be so friggin' fickle on these things. So it's just like, just because someone tells you today, I don't think, Parker should do that. Then,
Yeah.
10 years later, and be like, oh, we should have made Parker do that. Right. So it's just like, how do you know when to listen and when to go, no, I'm sticking with my vision on this?
I think that's actually interesting because this film has been in the making for many years. Like, we had the brainchild about this movie in 2016, 2017. So we've been like, the thought has been there, and the fact that it's now, 2024 and it's resonating, or it's just fun for people to watch. But I think for me personally, like, I don't really, maybe this is not the correct answer you want to hear, but I don't really think about that so much. I'm just like, okay, here's an idea. Let's make it happen. And if there's an audience, there's an audience. Like, you can't appease everybody, but also there will be that niche group of people that hopefully, it vibes with. And for me, ultimately, it's like making a good thing at the end of the day, no matter what it is. Like, you know, and if people believe in you and support it, let's make it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, just with like movies in general. It's, you know, one of those things where I feel like, you know, as long as a movie entertains you, I feel like it did its job. If it you know, if you were in it for 90 minutes or 2 hours or however long it is, or 15 minutes, and you were entertained and it made you kind of feel something at the end of it, the movie did its job. And there's a million, what is that saying? Something to something, a cat, million ways to skin a cat, something
Milk
like
a cat?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
that.
Million ways to milk a cat?
Not to be, but it's like, yeah, it's one of those things too, like always receptive to feedback, and like especially on set and with the people that you choose to work with, it's like they're there for a reason, right? Like you all got together to do this, to collaborate. And I think it's just one of those like fine lines where it's like that quote where it's like, you know, be careful whose advice you buy, but be patient with whoever supplies it, sort of thing, where listen to everything, take it in, and then ultimately just make the call if you feel like it's the right one to make, or the best decision you can make at the time. But there's always things like, especially when we were going in the edit and stuff like that, you're like, why did we do this? Why didn't we do another take of this? Why didn't we have a script supervisor on set for continuity?
Yeah. Which you'll never notice, by the way.
Hopefully not. I think we cut around all of it.
So when you have that issue, right? There's, I mean, so many times, you know, we find out about things like that. Like, I think there was a classic Game of Thrones one where, well, I think there was a couple
the Starbucks cup.
Yeah, the Starbucks cup,
Yeah.
and you could see someone wearing jeans, I think it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is just like, wait, that's over 1 million episode. How did they miss that? Right?
Yeah.
But you know, so if a big production like that can, you know, fumble sometimes, right? When you're in the edit and you see something and you're like, like how do you navigate it?
We've been lucky, but go on.
Yeah, well, I think we were pretty lucky for the most part, but it's one of those things too where you got to make that decision where you're like, okay, am I okay with the Starbucks cup in the back because like the actor gave a wicked take and like that's our best performance take, and do I care that there's a Starbucks cup there? So it's one of those things where you just
blur it out. Yeah.
Whereas like the opposite, on the other hand, it's like, oh, the Starbucks cup is right in the foreground of the shot. Everyone's going to notice it, and it's going to distract them and pull them out of the movie. Yeah. So
I'm also a freak, and that like did not happen on our set. Like I was at the monitor all the time, and I'm just like, her bang, it needs to be fixed. I was like, call for makeup, because I hate that. Like I hated that being an actor when I like what Stephen just said, doing something, and then they're like, oh, your shirt was the wrong way, and I'm like, oh, annoying. So I've developed a like OCD about that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially with like indie, like Elysia, we shot this movie for like not a lot of money at all. We just kind of financed it between the two of us for, you know, a few $1,000s, and sometimes you get one take and you just have to live with it because you know we did it in 2.5 days because that's all we could we could do, and you just kind of make it work. You just got to work with, I guess, like the resources you have. Yeah.
Perfectionism. No, I'm just kidding.
So 2.5 days, a few thousand. You'd never think that watching this.
Thank you.
It really does look polished. It really does. You know, the cast are great, right? As I said, the dialogue really works. I enjoyed the way you utilize the camera, right? Like to kind of bring people in. Like there's a bit when Riley comes to Parker's house, right, to do their tradition, and so as Riley's walking in, like the camera's kind of going back with her, you know what I mean, and it just worked really well. And when Parker comes into the kitchen towards the end and she's moving around, we're moving kind of with her, but not exactly with her. So it still gives you that kind of frantic, like anxiety feel,
Mhm.
but with that movement. And I just thought, oh man, that's, you know what I mean? So I think the aesthetics of this, right? The vibe, the feel, like you kind of feel that there's a whole heap of money behind this, right? You think this is a major production because it doesn't feel any less than.
Oh,
Thanks,
that's
Kevin.
thank you. That's good to know because it's so hard as like I'm sure you know, Kevin, like when you're, you know, a filmmaker and then you're in the edit suite and you're just like every little thing drives you nuts, but because you were on set on the day and you saw all the takes and you watched them over and over again in the edit suite. And so I'm glad that the final product felt that way. And I think that's also, you know, we had a great camera team and I think we really tried to embrace some of that kind of fluidity and just finding efficiency with the camera movements. And I like my background also, I kind of started out in the industry doing like doc and unscripted TV too, where you really got to be efficient with the cameras because you're not doing a second take or a take two. And so it's one of those things too, where if you know, I think in the edit, what you kind of want to see, you know, you can swingle the camera around and knowing that you're not going to use that dead space between, or you can do it in the oneer. But I think it's normal to also have those nerves of like, oh, I really need an insert. I really need two other pieces of coverage. I really need this. But thankfully we had a really great cinematographer on as well and a great camera department, and the actors were really just fun to work with. But yeah, that shot that you're talking about at the doorway, that was one where we were like, I was like,
Let's go.
then that's how that came up. It was like, okay, so we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this.
And then we're back. Yeah.
This scene is done in one shot.
Yeah.
And that first Steadicam guy, when we were doing it was the first shot we did on day one, I think, Elysia, when Skylar Parker comes down the stairs and we kind of follow her around the house, and you kind of get a sense of the space, and the Steadicam's following her and leading her. So it's kudos to the camera department.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Are you like storyboarding? Like, are you mapping out every single shot? Like, how does your kind of shoots come together?
Yeah, my storyboards, like, they're pretty horrible looking, but
they're cute. They're very cute.
But then I just want to know what the frame looks like, and then after, it's one of those things where you can storyboard it, but then if you have like the location doesn't work out, the one that you initially wanted, then you kind of got to start from scratch because you've got the limitations of the space that you're working with. And so I am one of those people who, like, especially when, you know, time and money is really tight, I'll over prepare, and I'm like that nerd where, like, before even like day one, I like had my like schematics and storyboards, and I'm like, all right, DOP, camera operator, blah blah blah, and like this is how it's going to work. And then you just kind of play with it, where they're like, okay, that's cool, but what if we like did this a little bit instead? And so I think that kind of comes full circle with your comment earlier too, just about collaborating and other people's feedback.
Yeah, Stephen was great at giving everybody a roadmap of his brain on this shoot. And it was like one of those pamphlets you pick up at the gas station of like what city you're in. We're in Springboro, bitches. Here we go. And it was awesome because you're like, wow, thank you, dude. But yeah, and then you just kind of take detours where you need to. But he crushed it.
So how did you get your cast into that vibe for this film, right? Do you give them reference points? Do you be like, okay, so watch this movie, this scene, like the way the character is, that's what I want you to be like? Are you doing that? Are you giving people music? Or how does it work?
Well, I think the first step in the process was, so Elysia's background is in front of the camera and as an actress, and she knows a lot of really great people in town, which is how we were able to secure a lot of the talent. So at the gate, I mean, we were working with really great people who were just really fun to collaborate with and just down to have some fun and play around. But the extent of it, I don't know, like for me, and Lacey, it'll like interesting to hear your side of this too, but like you want to have a vision, but also let the actors have fun with the character and take kind of risks and make choices and I think the extent of anything that kind of sent them reference wise in advance was just kind of, in general, the mood board or certain little scene clips from some other movies where just they could kind of like more so, not so much about their character performance per se, because that was something that kind of came about in the creative process. And you don't want them kind of just, playing a character in another movie that already exists. It's kind of boring, and that's pretty limiting for an actor, I would imagine. But more so just like reference clips of like body movements and like, chase scenes in movies, or like fight scenes, or like stabbing motions and that sort of thing. So just kind of had some fun with that. But I mean,
like I know Stephen and I had big talks about that, and I think it all stemmed from the creative when we discussed things with wardrobe and makeup and even just getting the mask work done for the slasher. So we were kind of setting the energy and like, let's just say the color palette and like the mood board of the movie. And I think sharing what we could with the cast was lovely, and we were really fortunate to have tuned in actors that were like ready to play, and that also gave us options to take in, which was lovely. So it was very symbiotic. But I think too, like Stephen, I think there was points, where Stephen would be like, yeah, like I'm using, Scream as like my inspo. Or there would just be, our lead Parker would be listening to music and shit, and she'd be like, this is kind of the mood I'm in. And we're like, okay, great. So, like there would be times where I'd catch Stephen being like, let's take this mood and like bump it up or take it down a bit or whatever, just to kind of like cater to that energy in the world. Like you said earlier, with the dynamic between Parker and Riley, we wanted that to be very evident and present so that they weren't on the same gradient, tonally. And those actors brought it anyway, like it was in their beings. And so, yeah, it was like, for me, I just love watching it all come together and be like this weird, like kind of like mom producer on set, where I'm like, okay, like let's make the stew and have all the ingredients there and make sure that the pot is fucking boiling at high, so we can go. But like, it's a great question, Kevin. I think it all just depends, honestly, like how the tone is being set. And that's coming from, your captain over there, like your director leading the ship on the day. And Stephen was like, he has such clarity on it. And that it was clear. Like, kind of, I hate using clarity and clear in the same sentence, but it was like clearly shown,
Yeah.
Okay.
And
even editing room with him, like that was a nightmare for me, because I was just like, oh my God, this is like so interesting, and just like, but there was a lot of still direction, which he got across that made it.
Now, Elysia, you've worked on so many huge projects, right?
Thanks.
I mean, look at your IMDb. You really have,
like this film. No, yeah.
You worked on some great stuff, right? Video games, TV, films, all of that jazz. Like, how much of that experience influences how you produce?
I first and foremost just always want to make sure I'm creating an environment that is creatively comfortable, if that makes sense. Like, I just want to make sure that everyone can be creative and be comfortable, and have it be like a safe play space, and that we all know that that's our container. There have been sets that I've been on that were just wild and not safe. And you felt it, and you didn't feel confident as a performer to have a comment, or to go talk to your director, or to go take a piss. Like, you didn't want to leave. So it's like I think that was the biggest thing for me, stepping behind the camera and working alongside Stephen, who's so conscientious and so perceptive and detailed. Like, it's one of those things for me that if that isn't there, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? Like, even if you're getting paid like a shit ton of money, like, who cares? Like, are you coming home at the end of the day feeling just depleted and lame? So that honestly is like the biggest thing for me, and just making sure that everyone available on set is like doing their job too. and like functioning optimally. And by that, I just mean like the stupidest thing of like, do you have a coffee or do you have a snack? Have you eaten today? Like, I'm literally going around set to everybody all the time. Do you need cheese? Like, oh, wait, you're a vegan. Fuck, not you. But like, I'm always just making sure that people are nourished because I know, and I do this, my husband does it for me. I know that when you're working, you don't stop. And maybe that's your process, but you still need fuel for a 12-hour day. So that's like the mom in me. But I think that's kind of like my biggest thing is stepping from that side to that, because it was things being an actor that I noticed that I always say this is like there were things that I saw that I didn't like where I'm like, ooh, thanks for guiding me as to how I don't ever want to be. Like it was nice to experience the shit to be better, if that makes sense.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Like
long-winded answer, but yeah.
No. But I think it's very telling, you know what I mean? Because I use that kind of process with managing people because the amount of time I've had shit managers, right? And you're just like, oh man,
yeah.
I will never do that. I'm
Yeah.
never gonna have that approach. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important. And I think it speaks volumes, right? Because if, as Stephen said, like a lot of this cast came on due to you. Right. So
it was a collab. It was a collab for sure. Like both of our, I think both of our resumes together spawn great.
But you have like a lot of agents on like speed dial and stuff is
sure.
I think too.
Sure.
Like, you got them in the room.
Yeah. Let me just call someone right now, quick. No, I'm kidding. No, but yeah,
if you got a bad vibe, they're not coming, right? People aren't going to come and work with you if, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, God, that's a huge thing to hold up to that you said that. So fuck. I'll bring my sage around everywhere, but yeah, I feel like I just try to maintain that throughout all my work, just in everything I'm doing, like even when I'm stepping in front of a mic to record again or whatever, or doing things like this. Like, it's just nice to be present with people. Yeah.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Most definitely. Now, you're screaming on Sunday, right? I think that's when the film
this Sunday.
Yeah.
At 6:30 p.m. Eastern.
With Dark Matter. I think it is, isn't it?
Dark Match.
Yeah. So do you have any, like, how does that work, right? When they put, the short with the feature, like, do you get a say? Do you know what I mean? Like, or do they just say, this is what's happening?
I think it's like, I mean, the programming director at Fantasia was awesome. And like the whole team over there, I was like really, not that I ever doubted their process, but there's a reason I think their reputation is so good and they're so organized and so on it. And they're so communicative, which is like a dream, because sometimes you go to festivals and it's like,
what am I doing? Yeah. Where's the entrance? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, they've been so awesome. And then her name was Carolyn, and she was just telling us, she was like, we saw Dark Match, and then as soon as we got around to screening Hell as a Teenage Girl, she's like, it just felt like the perfect fit. And she's like, it's going to make sense once you see Dark Match. And it's one of those things that's really cool, because I think that's going to be, Dark Match is going to be a very popular film at Fantasia. And it's really awesome to be able to, be kind of the lead into that. Because sometimes it can be a little easy to get like kind of, lost in the sauce when it's like the short section of a festival, or when they kind of put like, a shorts compilation at a certain point in time. So it's, I think we were feeling like very grateful that we get to lead someone in, because the last time with our previous short from the years ago, we got the lead in with Tragedy Girls, which is like one of Alesia's favorite kind of teen slash
recent teen. Yeah, it literally left a mark on me after I saw it. I was just like, wow, this like was nice.
Yeah,
it was really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah. So we're stoked actually to meet the creators of Dark Match too, and just kind of see, how like give each other a high five, because
Yeah.
we like, to answer your question too, we don't have a say, right? Like it just
Mm.
happens, and then you're like, oh,
Mhm.
thanks.
As soon
We'll
as we just
take it.
Yeah, we just got the email. It was from Fantasia in advance, and it was just like, "You've been selected," and we're like, "Yep, whatever, don't
Yeah.
care."
Yeah. When's your
Work up.
screen
We're
time?
so excited. Yeah. So uh, project us on a bathroom stall. I don't care.
Yeah.
We're
Ooh,
coming.
that'd be a great screening room. Yeah.
all right. So yeah, so you screen, then what's the next steps? Like what happens after Fantasia? Because I mean, it's about trying to finance that feature film, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Man, I
Well,
hope everything happens, but
yeah. Well, right after or during Fantasia is the Frontiers market, which is the big kind of genre film market where it's exclusively kind of horror, sci-fi, and fantasy, and a lot of the buyers and the streamers and the distributors come out. So Elysia and I have packed our calendar. We want to see.
Yeah.
We're seeing as many movies as possible, going to as many cocktail events as possible. We're attending the pitches. We've got like a short list of who we're like.
Yeah, we'd love to meet
Or,
you.
or
Yeah.
like who's going to
Yeah.
corner you at a cocktail party, whether you
Yeah.
like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and that's kind of what the great thing about those two things kind of being back to back and having the overlap too is some of those people thankfully are going to see the short, and we've actually had some of the people we have been in contact with that we really wanted to get in front of request a private screener if they're not going to be there. So we're hoping something cool happens with it, but
Yeah.
and hopefully more festivals ahead as we kind of head into the fall and the Halloween season. So that's when a lot of the genre festivals really kick off.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, it is it's a fun, as I say, it's a fun film, and there's a lot of questions with with this short, right? That you think, what about this? What about that? Right? Like the rules. I mean, how did you come with these rules?
Well, I think the rules were a direct kind of like wink and a nod to the rules from Scream 1. When the character Randy's like, there's certain rules to surviving a horror movie. And so what was fun with the short was being able to kind of have a bit of suspension of disbelief and have it in this hyper reality where you break the rules, you're literally going to die. And one thing that has been really fun to work with the feature is the feature length version gives more kind of insight into the backstory of the dad, the slasher, how Parker and kind of got outed as the slasher's daughter, his motives, and sort of that that curtain that he exists behind. So that's something that's something that exists in the feature, I guess, but in a short, again, kind of what we were talking about earlier. It's like you got 15 minutes, pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
What do you want to tell?
But it left you questioning, Kevin.
There you
which
go.
is
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I think that's the thing, because you're watching the story and you're enjoying the story. There's a few questions that you have, right? Like, why doesn't the mum just move them? Right? Like, how do people know,
Yeah.
like, she's the daughter, right? How does a killer know you've just done it? Right? Like, you know what I mean? Right? Was he got a sensitive nose? Like, what's going on here? But
Yeah.
but because
I love
it's a
that.
short and it's fun, right? You go, okay, these are things that it'd be interesting to know, but we don't necessarily really need to know because it works regardless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, and I'm glad you felt that way after watching it too. So,
Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah.
But it's knowing there's a feature is in mind. It's definitely going to be fun to see the rest of the building blocks for this, right? To see those other elements being fleshed out and added and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't wait.
You're awesome. You have such you have such great questions.
seriously,
Like
these are fun.
Kevin.
No, I mean it was a fun, you know what I mean, film to watch, right? It's engaging. You know, the performances were tremendous, right? There's you know, certain things came to mind watching it. You know, obviously, like you think of Buffy, you think of Scream, like you think of some of these things, but you know, one thing I did think is just like there's, you know, I watched some Buffy. I found
yeah.
Buffy very annoying. Like, you know what I mean? I just was hoping at one point a vampire will eat her. They did not. You know what I
They
mean?
just made
But,
out.
yeah, but Parker, I know that's the crazy thing. But Parker's not like you. I think Parker's more fleshed out, right? Like these characters that seemed more rounded than, you know, some of the ones that you see in some of these big franchises and, you know, shows and all of that kind of thing. So it's just interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I mean, I cannot wait to you know what I mean, see what you do with this. And I'm hoping that, you know, when it all blows up and it's a huge success and, you know, the big studio buys, you know, and puts all that money in, that you stop by, that you remember, you know what I mean? You remember Echo Chamber and you come by and you talk about the big feature.
Oh, this was great. I've had a blast. This like hour has just breezed by. So thank you.
Hey, no worries at all, man. No worries at all. But yeah, I really hope you enjoy the Fantasia experience.
Thank you.
I definitely, if you get an opportunity, because I know they're going to be out there, but I'm not quite sure if at the same time. But try and have a conversation with the Addams family because they're great. And I'm sure they have a lot of info they could give you about, you know, financing and making those deals with the studios and everything like that.
Amazing.
I'm writing this down.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they've got a film showing called what is it? The Hellhole, I think that.
I just saw Fantasia post that.
Yeah.
Last night.
I saw that too. Okay, cool.
They are fantastic. They are really great people. So
the Addams family.
Yeah, it's John Toby.
Wow.
John and Toby and Lulu, their oldest daughter. I think Lulu's the old. Is Lulu the oldest daughter? Yes, I believe Lulu is the oldest daughter. There's another daughter elder. I think, yeah, Lulu wrote the film with them.
My God, that's amazing. I love that their name is the Addams family.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think we actually have that movie in our calendar. Me and Elysia created a shared calendar because we're so all over the place the next week. But I think that's actually in there.
It is.
Yeah, as one of our ones to see. So yeah, we're just looking forward to like seeing other people's work too, and like, you know, hopefully get to like collaborate with some people, or like maybe we can help them out, maybe they can help us out, maybe we can just like put our little, you know, brains together and go to a warehouse in Atlanta at some point and come up with a
new destination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows, right? Who knows what could happen? I mean, other than you know, a feature version of this, what are there other ideas ruminating? Are there other genres that you'd be like, oh, we'd love to play with that? Like, have you got ideas for TV, other formats?
So with Going to Frontiers, so we've got Hell is a Teenage Girl is of course one of them, and then another project that's more of a body horror called American Oxygen that I'm excited about. I don't have it in like the full, you know, first draft stage quite yet, but and then a one that's a little bit more of a, you know, a traditional kind of whodunit slasher, kind of a throwback to kind of those like almost, you know, like the murder mystery style slashers. And so all kind of within the genre, but different kind of
little pockets, little suburbs. Little pockets, little suburbs of the genre.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the genre. I think it's just so much fun to watch, to write, to make.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're all here too. All three of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, after this, I'm on board for it all. So I
Yeah.
cannot wait. So
Thank you.
yeah, man. I just hope you have a fantastic festival, and yeah, we get to see more of your ideas real soon.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, you're rad.
No worries at all. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really did appreciate it, and it was a lot of fun getting to talk about this. This film, because oh man, it's a doozy. So
Well, we're glad you liked it.
yeah, thank you so much,
You're
and
welcome.
all the success.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Kevin.
Awesome. Oh gosh, before we
Yeah.
bounce, how can people follow you and find out more about the film? Obviously.
Elysia.
So I think the best thing to do is to give us a follow on Instagram. The Instagram handle for the film is Hell is a Teenage Girl Film. And then you can also give Stephen and I a follow. My Instagram handle is at Elysia Rotaru. And Stephen's is
Stephen Sawchuk.
at Stephen Sawchuk.
We got lucky. We both got our first name, last name, and then that's
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that'd be awesome. That's the best way to keep in touch.
Okay, people. Well, you've heard it here. Go follow them, and yeah, keep an eye out for screenings of this film because it is fantastic, and you will want it in your life. So, Elysia, Stephen, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and yeah, have an incredible Fantasia.
Thank
And
you.
you know what I mean? I can't wait to talk to you about the upcoming feature version of this show.
Thanks, Kevin. Stay
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
tuned.
Awesome. All right. Take care, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.